Okay. 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 He's doing what he's supposed to be doing. Yeah. 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 We talk about Herb every day.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So I welcome people that are in our space with us because it's nice and cool in here, even though it's not really hot, hot outside. It's a little on the humid side. It's still summer, and that's why on the Garrett I put at the top, come in and get cool for our services, hoping that cool was the hint in case people were like, oh my God, it's so hot. What can I do on Friday night? Come here to us. So for tonight, we're not only recording on Zoom for the rabbi, but there were people that asked me about my talking about Rwanda, and they wanted me to put it on YouTube if they couldn't be here. So we're going to be in both places just for tonight. So for those that don't know me, I'm Ronnie Pressman. I'm the clergy associate here, and with me is
Debbie Kravitz.
into the microphone, please.
Debbie Kravitz, congregant, 25 years.
So it's great to have us both here. We're going to begin this evening with a nigun. Not that we need to warm up, but we can warm up our voices and change this space, which could be a teaching space, or it could be a learning space, or maybe even yoga would happen in here, into a sacred space. So I'll ask you to close your eyes because there are no words to this nigun, and I'll sing it through for one part of it, and then you can join me. Ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da da ya da 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 ya da da ya da da da. Easy words. Ya da 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 ya da 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 da.
Ya
Da 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 ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 ya da 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 da. Ya da da ya da da da. Ya da da ya da 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 da. Ya da da. Ya da da ya da 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 da. Ya da da. Ya da da da. Ya da 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 ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 ya da 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 da. Ya da da. Shabbat shalom to some folks that came in after we started our nigun. I think we're warmed up and ready for us to move into our candle blessing. And if you'll join us on page 2, Debbie's going to light candles this evening.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us, as their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
We continue on page 5. You could take that awesome foil off the top, too. Thank you to Frank for protecting our wine.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu. V'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon chikilanu. Zikaron l'maaseh bereishit.
Ki hu yom techila l'mikra'e kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu bacharta, v'yotanu kidashta mikol hamim. V'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon chinchaltanu.
Baruch atah Adonai mikadesh hashabbat.
L'chaim. You can turn to page 20 for Lecha Dodi. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yadadai, 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 b'nei Shabbat. Nekabelai, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yadadai, 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 b'nei Shabbat. Nekabela, Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Ishmianu el hamyuchad, Adonai echad, Ushmo echad, L'shemul tiferet v'lihila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yadadai, 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 b'nei Shabbat. Nekabelai, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yadadai, 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 b'nei Shabbat. Nekabelai, likrat Shabbat, lechu v'necha, ki hi mikor ha-bracha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'makshava tchila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yadalai, 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 b'nei Shabbat. Nekabelai, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yadalai, 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 b'nei Shabbat. Nekabela, hitoreri, hitoreri, kiva hore kumi uri, 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 shidaberi, kivod Adonai, alayik nigla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yadalai, 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 b'nei Shabbat. Nekabelai, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, yadalai, 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 b'nei Shabbat. Nekabelai, boi v'shalom, ateret ba'ala, gam b'simcha uvetzola, toch emunei Am segula, boi kala, boi kala, lechadodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 pnei Shabbat. Nekabela, yai, lechadodi, krat kala, yalalai, 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 pnei Shabbat. Nekabela. We remain standing, but we face towards the east. Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed Le'olam va'ed Yadadai dai dai Yadadai dai dai Yadadai dai dai Yadadai dai dai Yada dai dai dai, yada dai dai dai, yada dai dai dai, yada dai dai dai. Please be seated.
O God, you are near as the very air we breathe, yet farther than the farthermost star. We yearn to reach you. We seek the light and warmth of your presence. Though we say you are near, we are lonely and alone. Oh, let our desire be so strong that it will tear the veil that keeps you from our sight. Let your light release our darkness and reveal the glory and joy of your presence.
We turn ahead, but we don't turn to the page. We turn to the screen, and you can see this is a rendition of Ma'ariv Haravim, the awesomeness of changing from this daylight to the twilight in the evening, or dusk until we change to dark. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, and day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, and day turns to night. Borei yom v'layla, golel or mipnei choshech, golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, and day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, and day turns to night. We turn to page 32. Ahavat olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu lemadita, Otanu lemadita. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shavenu, U'kumenu nasiach bechukecha, V'nismach b'divrei Toratcha, U'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu, ve'orech yameinu, uvahem negei yomam v'layla. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Continue on page 36. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים אלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני Adonai Elohechem.
Elohim, Emet. Standing on the parted shores of history, page 39, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together.
We move ahead to Michamocha, but move back in time before Debbie Friedman brought out her Michamocha. Michamocha ba'elim Adonai, Michamocha neder b'kodesh, Norah tehilot oseh feleh, Norah tehilot oseh feleh, Malchutecha ra'u vanecha, Bokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, Zeli anu yomeru ve'yameru, Adonai yimloch, Adonai yimloch, le'olam va'ed. V'ne'emar ki fad Adonai et Yaakov, u'ki alom yachazak mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael. We move ahead to our next slide for Hashkivenu. If we were to read the English, we'd know that this Hashkivenu really asks God to be our guide and good counsel, but not only that, to guard us when we go to sleep. But we're not ready for sleep yet. We still need to be guarded while we're wide awake. So you'll see up this slide. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim, u'shmor tzeitenu, uvo'enu, l'chaim u'shalom, me'ata ve'ad olam. Sometimes I lay under the moon, and I thank God I am breathing. Then I pray, don't take me soon, 'cause I am here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will play one day, 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 one day. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. I'm going to move directly into our next slide, and I'm going to ask you if you are able to please rise. And we're at the Amidah, which is the standing prayer, but some people can't stand on their feet. So if you can't stand physically, make sure that you're standing on the inside. And only the beginning of the Amidah we will do out loud, and then you can pray silently up through page 62 or the words in your Siddur. And when you are finished, please be seated. Open my eyes to truth, open my hands to give freely, open my lips to good words, to pure words, open my heart to love, open my eyes to truth, open my hands to give freely, open my lips to good words, to pure words, open my heart to love. Adonai sefatayv tiftach, ufi yagid tehilatecha. Open my lips to good words, to pure words, open my heart to love. I have two things to close out our prayer section. Please turn to page 259 as we have the opportunity to say a prayer for Israel. Avinu Bashamayim, Tzor Yisrael v'Goalo. Read together with me, O Heavenly One,
Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seeks peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen.
Amen. We turn back to Oseh Shalom, but I'm not sure you need to turn back. I think you know the words. Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. As we always end this section of prayer, we turn back to page 253, and I will start the Mishaberach, and I'll ask for names, and then we'll see on the screen the many, many names that we have that we're saying prayers for. Mishaberach avotenu v'imotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, hu yivarech et hacholim. The one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill.
Esther Geld and Cindy Sherman.
May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say,
Amen.
Amen. Misheberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We turn ahead to page 282, and if you are able, please rise for Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoye haratzot, velo samanu kamishbechot adama, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We turn to page 287. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand, but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Please be seated. Please turn to page 294. Our thoughts now turn to those we love who have passed from life. As is the way of our people through our recitation of Kaddish, we honor their lives by praising God for letting us walk at their side and they at ours for even our little time. I invite you, if you're so inclined, to individually rise at your seat as I call the name of your loved one, yahrzeits for this Shabbat. Mildred Abramson, Aaron Axelrod, Herbie Bias, Francis Elkin, Harold N. Gaffin, Victor Gates, Louis Glantz, Mark Goldstein, Abraham Goldstein, Rose Goldstein, Helen Grayson, David Grosser, Francis Gutentag, Barry Guterman, Augusta Gurvich Heller, Tommy Johnson Sr., Robert Kaplan, Samuel Kessler, Irene Kolinsky, Raymond Krause, Deborah Lang, Edgar Lowe, Stanley Lusgarten, Hannah Marger, Max Mazabov, Gerald Moskowitz, Ada Perwin, Rose Richter, Bert Schwartz, Jean Silberlust, Sarah Silberman, Monia Sondak, Goldie Stradmauer, Sidney Steinloff, Ida Stelzer, Philip Wagner, Herman W. Yesses. For those who are in their Shiva and Shloshim periods of mourning, Herbert Kravitz, father of David Kravitz. Marion Zukoff, mother of Rachel Pogge. Jeff Dieterle, husband of Marie Dieterle. In addition, please rise and share the name of anyone for whom you are observing a yahrzeit that may not have been on this list. Finally, if there's anyone here in their 1 year period of mourning, please stand and share the name of your loved one for whom you're reciting Kaddish. And now, in support of those standing before us and in memory of the 6 million, I invite you to rise and recite the Kaddish with us. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, b'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayei echon uv'yom echon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'yimru, Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam ulamei amaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudasha brechu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran b'yalma v'yimru Amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen. O seh shalom b'mramav, huya seh shalom, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, Imru, Amen. Please be seated. I guess I'm really happy to say that we don't have a ton of announcements, and I say that sort of tongue-in-cheek. I mean, it's great to have a lot of announcements, but as you might have noticed, the Igeret is really small in the summer. And outside of my tongue-in-cheek at the beginning saying that if it's cool outside, come in and have services, I really meant it. It is cool in here, and it's a cool place to be, whether it's cool or it's cool, whatever. So just so you know about services for the rest of our time this Shabbat, I will be leading tomorrow, and Lucy Siegel will be doing the Devar, and Tina Shea is going to be chanting Torah, and then I'm going to wrap it up with a little Haftarah. So we always need a minyan, so if you're available, come. It's cool here. Outside of that, the Igeret has some things that are going on, just a few here and there. I think the next thing that actually is coming upon us is Tisha B'Av. Don't raise your hand if you have no clue what it is. It's okay, because the rabbi is going to send out an email, so you'll learn more if you don't know what Tisha B'Av is. That's cool. It's not going to be cool that day, but just thought I'd tell you that. And we do a communal service with B'nai Keshet and Temple Sholem in Cedar Grove, and it is on August 12th. I think it's at 8 p.m., and it's at Edgewater Park. So if you've never been, there'll be some chanting of Echa, of Lamentations, so please join us. And there's no food, sorry.
It goes fast.
Edgemont Park.
Yeah.
You have to bring your own little chair. It says it on the picture on the screen, so you'll see that. Outside of that, there are Shabbat services every single week. Of course, this is way more than a minyan, so thank you everyone for coming in and being cool with us. I mean, that's a good thing as well. Outside of that, Deb, you have anything else you want to announce?
I think we're good.
Maybe the barbecue, wait.
Oh, yeah.
Do you wanna say
I think
something?
it's September 8th. Is the 8th, right? I think it's the September 8th is our Welcome Back Barbecue, AKA the Blue Jeans Barbecue, right?
Yeah,
It's going to
So,
start at 5 o'clock.
and that's not in the Igeret yet, but it'll be
Yeah.
next week.
But early notice, save the date.
Okay. Outside of that, just have a great Shabbat. We'll close out this evening with our final prayer, and you'll find that on the screen. And it is the very end of Adon Olam. It's the last verse, actually. Beyado afkid ruchi, be'et ishan ve'ahira, ve'im ruchi geviati, Adonai li ve'lo ira, ve'im ruchi geviati, Adonai li ve'lo ira. My soul I give to you, my spirit in your care. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Hold me in your hand. Draw me near, I shall not fear. Safely in your hand. Shabbat Shalom. For those that are staying, I'm going to be speaking about my recent trip to Rwanda. So I'll give you a 2-second break if you want to stand up and stretch. I'm going to be short. I am short, anyway, but that's besides the point. It's besides the point. I'm also going to take the camera and turn it so that those that are online can also see the slides that I'm going to talk about. So I might be out of view for them at this point, but I'm going to turn this in case they need to see. I'm going to scoot over there because I'm going to also talk about some of them and point. So, where's Rwanda? You can share them. Go ahead, Matt. Uh-oh, he lost us. There he is. So the question is, where is Rwanda? So I will say that I sort of chuckled when my grandson said, "Oh, are you going to go to Wakanda?" And I was like, no, I don't think that's on my trip. It's hard to see from back there, but Rwanda is right over here. It's a tiny little place. It's probably smaller than Israel. It's kind of hot, but it's not swelteringly hot like Uganda. That is its next door neighbor. Uganda has this gigantic, which you can't see from afar, but this blue spot, which is a lake, and it's really hot there. When I think of Uganda, I think about, that bead of sweat that goes down your back. There's a lake that goes down your back. That's how hot and humid it is there. And I have been to Uganda, but Freddie and I went to Uganda 9 years ago, to Rwanda and Uganda 9 years ago with a dear friend of mine, Rabbi Joel Safin. For those that might know Joel, he was the rabbi in Sukkasana, way over in the western part of New Jersey, not really that far away. And he runs an organization, a foundation called Jewish Helping Hands. So I want to talk about Rwanda a little bit. I'm going to use my notes for the beginning of this because it's important for you to be able to have a little framework about Rwanda and why I even wanted to talk about it and why I really want to talk about a genocide. Like, do we need to hear that again? The genocide was the culmination of decades of division and incitement of hatred towards the Tutsis by extremists in the countryside's leadership, which was controlled by members of the Hutu majority group. So we'll talk about them in a second. On April 6, 1994, when the president's plane was shot down, killing both the Rwandan and Burundian presidents, the radical Hutu radio channel announced the deaths, urging Hutus to go to work and attack the Tutsi population. The genocide began from that very date, April 6, 1994. Close to 1 million Tutsi ethnic minorities and some moderate Hutus were hacked to death. I mean, just think of the worst, and that's it. In a killing spree that lasted for about 100 days. Hutu extremists were behind the brutal murders. Using racist, pseudo-scientific methods, just listen to what I'm going to say, and you'll go, oh. Authorities divided and created a hierarchy within the population based on physical differences. Sound familiar? Based on measurements such as height, shape of nose, and skin color. Colonial authorities designated Tutsi as superior to Hutus. France was a major supplier of these weapons, either directly selling them to the Rwandans or financing transactions with other countries. Besides France, Egypt and South Africa also provided weapons to the Hutus. Prior to the colonial era, Hutu, Tutsi, and Twa lived in relative harmony. Those are the three groups that were there. Tutsi, 14% of the population, were cattle herders, which you can see the kind of land there. It's like this when you're driving along. Definitely riding along. Soldiers and administrators. The Hutu, 85% were the farmers, and the marginalized Twa, 1% were hunter-gatherers or potters. I'm a potter, so 1% is like not enough for me. I'm not a Twa either. What is the relationship between Hutu and Tutsi today? They emphasize the shared language and attribute the idea of Hutu and Tutsi as ethnicities or races as entirely due to colonial intervention. In modern-day Rwanda, referring to Hutu or Tutsi anywhere but in historical context is not approved of. Nobody mentions it. In fact, they veer away and say we are Rwandans. And in political context, it's actually illegal. Okay, Matt, we're going to move to the first slide, the next slide, sorry. So I want to talk about the widows because this whole genocide was killing the men. And sometimes they killed some women, but as of now, there are 17,000 widows still in the country that haven't passed away. And it's really kind of a beautiful country. It's very primitive, and I'll talk about some of these things. So this is the backyard of one of the homes. I'm not sure what they were using this for. It could be like a baby sukkah, but I'm only kidding. So, but you can see that the people that live there, really want to keep it up. They take care of their yards. They take care of their gardens. I mean, they're really, really sweet. And they also do something that to me is very cool. One day a month, everyone, that includes the president, the cab drivers, etc., any job that you had, stop, and everyone goes out and does, quote unquote, tikkun olam. And they all go out, and what do? They clean. They make sure there's no garbage around. They take care of plantings. They take care of buildings. They take care of their country, which I think is pretty cool. So that's the cleanliness. But I want to point out a couple of other things there. This is what many of the homes, at least when Freddie and I went 9 years ago, look like. Not very upkept. Basically, a roof over their heads. This is the coal that they cook with. They don't use charcoal, coal. Think of burning coal, think of breathing the fumes of that. Now think of Uganda, flip back a second to think of high humidity. The air is like so heavy, yet another reason to not go to Uganda. The airport in Uganda is Entebbe. Ring any bells? Glad the Jews did not go there, that we went to Israel. Thank you very much. But this is the coal that they cook with. This is their stove, so to speak. It's basically a bucket with a kind of thing on the top of it, and the coals go on there. This is an iron. So if you needed to iron the wrinkles out of your clothes, they put coal in it, lit it on fire, and it got hot enough that you could iron. This was 9 years ago when we were there. We also saw women carrying babies wrapped around their back and carrying things on their head. And they still have it, but some people try to get away from that because they don't want to keep things as they were. It's a country that's changing, and there is a decent amount of growth, and these are not what the newer homes look like. But each widow was given a home by the government because they had no place to live. Remember, just a roof over the top. This last picture that's here are the bricks for the homes. They're made out of straw. Sound familiar? They let them dry, and then they build them like Legos, and then they put a plaster on the outside. And so you can see that if the plaster is breaking away, you can see where some of those bricks are. They're still doing homes with those kind of bricks. And it's 2024. Matt, next slide, please. So I went under the guise of going with Jewish Helping Hands with my friend Joel, and there were 3 organizations that we were connected with. Avega happens to be the organization that helps support the widows. Now keep in mind there are 17,000 widows in the whole country. We support 31 of them. And so when Joel goes to Rwanda once a year, or I've been there, this is my 3rd trip, we go and visit the widows. And we visit with them to find out how their health is. Do they need more money? Because we give them support as well as the country does. And so I have a relationship with some of the women, and we'll talk about them a little bit later. Mind Leaps is the second organization. If you remember, a number of years ago, we raised some money here, and you'll see that picture later on, because we had T-shirts made from Temple Ner Tamid with other organizations, and we helped support these boys. At that time, it was boys only that lived on the streets. The moms couldn't take care of them, couldn't support them because they had no work. They lived in the homes like you've seen the one I showed in the slide before, and they lived on the street, the boys did. And the person who ran Mind Leaps, this woman, Rebecca, who lives in New York City, she saw boys dancing on the street, and she brought them into Mind Leaps. And we'll get back to that in a moment. And the last one that's here under the Jewish Helping Hands is Ramawagana Hospital, and it's a maternity ward that we visited. We'll get to that in a moment also. And then there are 2 other organizations that I happen to love. The one that's at the top, this Nyamarambo Women's Center, Matt's going to hit click in 1 second, and it's a very short video. No, he did it faster. It's okay. Go ahead, Matt. It's fine. Kigali is the capital. slide that shows more of what each one I'll talk about at that point. What's that one? Second one that says Question Coffee was a new place that I had gone this year, and I'll talk about specifically what it is, but this is how we were greeted. Okay, Matt, go for it. These women are the farmers. So there's lots to see in Rwanda. This is a tip of the iceberg. Matt, you can go on to the next one. Thanks. So this is at the Genocide Museum. Surprise, surprise, they need a museum as well. But I will say that I wasn't surprised what I saw. I've only been to this museum once. Once for me was enough. But the information that I'm going to share with you now, to me, is just mind-boggling. The people, the Hutus and the Tutsis, had to have ID papers with them. Sound familiar? And told if they were Tutsi or they were Hutus. And if you look around through the museum, you can see that there's a series of piles of things, shoes, clothing. Sound familiar? And last but not least, this is their memorial wall. Sound familiar? And to me, this is intriguing to think. We didn't learn the first time, not we in particular, but the world. We didn't learn the second time that it's a continual process. And for us to have peace, we constantly need to step forward and help make that happen. Matt, go to the next slide, please. Okay, so Avega, as I spoke about before, the governmental agency, and Jewish Helping Hands work together with the widows. This woman that's at the top, her name was Miriam. She was my favorite. If you remembered way back when I brought some really big poster-sized pictures, she was there. She's passed away. She was my age, a widow. This woman, not my age, but she's also passed away. Just want to point, she's not my age. But these two women, out of the 31 that we now have, so there were two more, had passed away. A lot of them have lots of health problems. Some of them have AIDS. Some of them have heart issues. Some of them have diabetes, et cetera, et cetera. And these women are still there, this one, and many others. But why I put this together was these kids are the next generation. And most of the children that we see are from the widow, meaning the widow's children's children. So those are the grandchildren of them. And specifically this one, I wanted to point out, along with this, each time that I go to Rwanda, and I've been there 3 times, I bring a gift for the women. The first year I made them these crocheted necklaces. You can't bring blue and you can't bring black. Those are their no colors because it's all connected with the genocide, so they don't wear those colors necessarily. It doesn't mean they don't have them mixed in with some of their clothing in those colors, but specifically. And so the first year I made necklaces, the second year I made bracelets. They were crocheted cotton. The third time that I sent along with Joel, I made khamsas for them. And the homes that I went into on the 4 days that we did the widow visitations, many of them still have them hanging there. And Amahora means peace in Kenyan Rwanda, and then I have shalom. And so many of them hanging there, and most of them have a picture of Jesus over the top of them. And I'm like, okay, let's get the best of both worlds. We're good. So this woman in particular said to us when I was just there last month, I need to pray. Of course, she said it in Kenyan Rwandan, and Kenneth, who is our man on the ground, he happens to be an OBGYN and speaks fluent English, and he befriended Joel years ago, and he guards the women and brings things to them, etc. She said to us, please stand, I want to pray. What does she want to pray about? Well, some of the things that we offered to them when we were there this time was water, one of them. And so right now for them to go, you can see very barely, but this yellow thing that's here, you know those gas plastic cans when you run out of gas? That's like what the water is carried in. And they're filthy And the widows can't really walk down in the valley and then schlep the water up. And so our gift to them was to bring them some water. And so we had water pumped up, and so it's in their neighborhood that then they can go fill their jugs and get running water, which is something they didn't have. Many of them don't have electricity in their homes, and we've brought electricity to them. Some don't even have light bulbs. They might have electricity, but if you don't have the bulb, what good does it do for you? One of the other women that we took care of this year said her outhouse was in disrepair. She had no bathroom, she had an outhouse, and when we saw it, we're like, fix it. It was basically a wood floor that had broken through. She could have fallen right in, and that was what we helped them to rebuild this outhouse. Believe me, I did not pick up a hammer or nails, but we could give them money to help take care of it, and Kenneth, our guy on the ground, helped us with that. Next slide, please, Matt. So here's Mind Leaps 9 years ago. Here were the boys outside that were dancing in the street, living on the street, brought into this space, and this was the open ground that we had for them to do dancing in. This time, 9 years later, they have a gigantic tented area, and they're still dancing, but there are girls dancing there too. And 9 years ago, the government was not willing to pay money to help support these kids. And they couldn't support them to put them in schools, so we had schooling for them at this particular site. Mind Leaps now, I think, has about 8 different sites all around the world, in Africa, etc. And so this is the only one that I've been to in Rwanda, but now the government has flipped it. Instead of us doing the teaching there, it's an after-school program. If the students are in school, we will support the women. And so by supporting the women, here's one of the women who we supported by giving her the training to open a store. You'll see there's like, maybe 8 heads of lettuce over here and maybe something else here. The mothers will be supported. If the student remains in school, we support the mothers. So they still come and do dance, and they're recognized around the country in different dancing venues, which is kind of cool. And they did a recital for us when we were there, and that was pretty amazing. We also built a computer lab, and it's under the guise of Jewish Helping Hands. And if you remember from last time, there's the t-shirt, and here's part of the feeding program. So every person that comes there, no matter what day of the week it is, always gets a hot meal. When we provided the t-shirts the last time, we provided these buckets, and in the buckets were t-shirts and flip-flops and toothbrushes and brushes and combs and soap, and they didn't have any of that kind of stuff. And so we from Ner Tamid supported them 9 years ago with that project. And so it's pretty amazing, and it's very cool. This was the coolest part. When I took pictures 9 years ago, and when I was there this time, one of the guys who I recognized, who's like way taller than me now, said to me in English, "I remember you." And I was like, just a minute. I took out my phone, quickly went to 9 years ago pictures, and he goes, "Wait a minute, that's me, and this is him," and pointed out all these guys. Out of 4 of them that I saw there, 3 of them are teachers on site now, and 1 runs the program. And that's why you do it. You want to take them off the streets, give them what they need to be productive and have productive lives. So that's Mind Leaps. On to the next slide, please, Matt. So we then went to this particular hospital. We were going to go to 3 of them, but Kenneth, our OBGYN friend, needed to have trigger finger surgery. And the only time that he could have rest and not be on to do what he normally does was when we were there, and his hand was killing him, so at least we got to 1. The purpose of us going was threefold. I will say that this hospital was so much cleaner than the one I went to 9 years ago and 8 years ago, but all of these women had just given birth, not this one, but this one just was born. The mother was in the delivery room, and I was right next door to be able to go in. We brought baby caps from people that had made them and donated them, so every woman got a baby cap for their babies. But what we provided for each of the women in this maternity ward, and would have been 3 others, Kenneth will deliver them to the other 2 hospitals, was an egg and milk. Why egg and milk? Most of them have C-sections. No, when you have a C-section, if you don't have nutrients, you won't heal quickly. And so many years ago, we decided that we would support through Jewish Helping Hands with milk, because you can get milk in those boxes that you don't need to keep refrigerated. But the coolest thing about the eggs, at least to me, was there are kids walking around on the streets with these baskets of eggs. And I'm like, how come they're not refrigerated? Well, if you don't pasteurize the eggs, you don't need to refrigerate them. Light bulb over my head. Oh, so when we put them in the refrigerator, we've cleaned off that protective part. That's why we need to refrigerate our eggs. But by supporting these women, the hospital will hard boil the eggs that we supply, and we deliver it to them, and we were able to see them. So that was pretty cool. This woman that's down on the right hand, the last one on the right, she was basically dropped off by her husband because she had no transportation and no insurance and no way to get back home with her newborn. We supported her and sent her on her merry way so that she could get back to her family. So this was a pretty amazing visit that we had done with that particular hospital. Next slide, please, Matt. Question Coffee. I had never been to this place. There was a woman that Kenneth, OBGYN Kenneth, did surgery on, and she paid for 2 of us to go on the tour. And it was phenomenal. I don't know what her name is. It was just, she really wanted to do this for him. And so we went to this plantation that is 85% run and owned by women, supported by Bloomberg Philanthropies, but we went from seed to cup, which to me was kind of cool. I didn't realize or know that if there is a coffee plant here, banana plants are next, every other one, because the banana leaves shield the coffee from the sun because it needs some shade. And as I said before, I noticed that the women were immaculate and they were the farmers. Well, they were meticulous with this. So here you can see the seeds. Here you can see the woman taking these plants, transplanting it into this little banana basket made of banana leaves. They don't use plastic anymore. There's no plastic bag allowed in the country. If you come in with it, you get fined for it. Of course, we brought plastic bags with things in it, but we took those plastic bags home. But instead of having a plastic container that had to be transplanted from, if they put it in the banana little cup that they made with it and plant that in the ground when they transplant, it biodegrades. So it saves them that. And then when you get to be almost ripe, you'll see these, looks like olives almost growing on there. But little do you know, they're these red things. I don't know how many of you guys know anything about coffee or about plantations. They call this the cherry. You'll know at the end why coffee is so expensive. They do everything by hand here. They take the cherry off, they rinse it, they take them and put all of those pieces on the inside of these long troughs with the netting over it, and then they let it sun dry. And when it's sun dried, they take an inner tube tire, just the inner tube part, and they put all of the beans in there that are dried, and then they take it and roll it. Now, some of you guys might have seen you could do that with garlic. There's this thing you can get at Amazon. It's like a silicone thing. You put the garlic in, roll, 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 and the peel comes off. Same thing here. And then they take it and take the peels off, shake them in this basket, separate those little hulls from it, and then take those seeds again, if you will, or the coffee beans, and put them out to dry again, AKA roasting the beans. So at this particular plantation, they roast them outside. All manual labor, or womanly labor, not manually. So 85%. And last but not least, when we came to the end, we actually did a coffee tasting, which to me was kind of cool. It was like a wine tasting. You had to check the aroma to it. You had to get rid of the fluff that was on the top, not that cute thing. And then you tasted them by going, so it took and touched every part of your tongue to know if it was bitter or whatever. And it was pretty cool. And so that was seed to cup for the coffee plantation. And it was pretty cool. Of course, Bloomberg Philanthropies was the part that actually supports it. Okay, Matt, next slide, please. Okay, the Women's Center that you saw that little video at the beginning, this started out, I think 19 years ago by a woman who was from someplace in Europe, I don't remember where, and she came and said to these women, you have no jobs, you have no way to support yourselves. How about we teach you? And they taught them how to do sewing, so you can see they're sewing here and they're sewing here and here. And they also taught them how to take the sisal and make bowls and containers out of them. And so now they had something that they could do to make a living. And so that center opened. Only women are there. I mean, guys come in and buy things, but only women run it. And it's grown from the time that I was there to now have teaching classes for cooking classes, and then the other thing is tourism, and they take you on a tour in their community. And that's kind of fun. So that's how they make their money. To me, this is a great way to support the group and to support women. And the women that work there have financial security because they can make their own money. Okay, Matt. So we're back to the beginning. So I'm going to open it for questions if you guys have any questions. I'm not a salesperson for Jewish Helping Hands, but I'm always a salesperson for Jewish Helping Hands. I happen to be on the board of it as well. And it was just an amazing trip. There is a dramatic difference with what I saw 9 years ago to what I see now. Gentrification is just bursting there. What I was amazed at and not happy about was if this was the widow's home, they built another one right here, like right next to it. So the widow had to go like this to squeak by to go into their door to get inside. Not all of them. And my concern was when I spoke to the women from Avega was, through the translator, of course, are they trying to squeeze them out? And they're not. Just the property that is there is there. And the widows have these homes that were just given by the government. Just the home is given, nothing else. So, of course I did. So at the Women's Center, I always buy lots and lots of things. All of their baby blankets and clothing that they make have that little heart that you saw before that was on the video, because it's all from the heart. That's how they say it. And so when I brought back a couple of things this time, my grandson said to me, I know where you got this. And they were like, well, how do you know? They go, because our baby blankets have those hearts on it. So it was pretty cool. So yes, I did bring back baskets, and I did bring back woven things, which was kind of fun. Oh, wait, Tina's wearing beads. Look, stand up. There you go. So, I mean, they use fabric for, all of the stitchery things. What was a little disconcerting to me was the fabric is bought in the Congo. But that's the only fabric they have. The colors are gorgeous. The colors are big and bold. And you can see in whatever the widows were wearing, what amazed me was they didn't have a dime for themselves. They always looked pristine and neat and tidy. And they were all in their country's clothing, which was pretty cool. Question? Oh, we can do that. Hold on one sec. I'll bring the microphone over. Okay, just talk in the microphone.
What's the average family size?
Oh, just a moment. It'd be good if we turn it on. Okay, now ask.
What's the average family size?
So the average family size is on the small-ish side. They're not, let's repopulate. They're not at that place at all. Kenneth has 3 kids. I think they're done.
Fascinated by what you say about can't talk about genocide. And so how does that manifest itself? Is that public? Do you have any sense that in private there are lessons learned about what happened back in the 90s?
That's a great question. It's not that they don't talk about the genocide, but it's not the table conversation that they want to have. They don't talk about Hutus and Tutsis ever. They talk about Rwandans as just people. Not just, but people, that they're all the same. They have a month where they celebrate after the genocide. This is their 30th year from the genocide. So each year in April, that's why we don't go in April. Not only is it the rainy season, but there are constantly, excuse me for one sec. Sorry. They are constantly celebrating that the genocide took place, but we're still here. And to me, that's not any different than us. We celebrate Holocaust, but it's not a celebration of, but it was a genocide. We mark the time by remembering, but know that we don't stay there. We move on to what's going on now. Does that answer that?
Yeah, is the not talking about it an edict that came down from the government?
No, it's the edict to not call out Hutus and Tutsis. That's the edict, not to call them that. Government,
Who adjudicates that?
political, said we don't need to talk about that anymore. To divide, we're all Rwandans. Good thought. Any other questions? So I'm not sure if they actually, I'll repeat the question. Did they talk about it in school? I'm not sure they talk about it in school, but what I will say is I went to a school. And having been an educator for 27 years in public school, what they have in their school would never happen in our schools. They might have had 50 to 60 students in a school and in a classroom, and the seating had a small table, and there were 3 kids sitting at each table. There was a disciplinarian there. We did meet him, and I guess my thought was, how often are you used? And they weren't going to answer that, but they don't teach French there anymore. They have Kenyan, Rwandan, and English. And they stopped teaching French because the French didn't help them. And they were like, we're not going to support this. So I don't think that they don't talk about the genocide, but remember that month of April, everybody talks about it and commemorates it.
But how did they get from end of the genocide to a government that says we're all Rwanda?
The genocide lasted 100 days. I don't think the genocide ended at 100 days. I mean, I think they still live with that, but they have an elected president who pretty much says, we're moving on. This happened. Let's make peace. Let's make peace for ourselves, and let's make peace for our country. I mean, I was pretty amazed with the country when I went 9 years ago. And Freddie and I had both gone, and we both felt that way. And of course, I said to him, the next year, I'm going to Rwanda. He goes, you are? I was like, yeah, I want to go back again. And when Joel asked me, did I want to go, it was time for me to start traveling again this past year. But I'm pretty sure that the government just made it be really positive, and let's move on. Let's remember, but let's move on. Did that answer that?
You know if there were equivalents of Nuremberg trials?
Say it out loud. Yeah. And so whatever the ramifications were of that, but I mean, they slaughtered millions. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes. Okay. So the coffee was pretty awesome. We went to the Question Coffee store. That's where we met the woman who took us on the tour. The woman, I don't think she was more than 30 years old. She knew everything there was to know because she's part of the co-op. The coffee was delicious. I had iced coffee. It was great. And I brought home 4 bags of it. Not in the coffee form, in the bean form. And to bring it home, they had to heat seal the pack so it couldn't be opened, but it went in my suitcase, and they said that was legit to do, and we brought home coffee. It was pretty cool. I don't remember because we paid in Rwandan francs. The interesting thing about the Rwandan francs was they had said to us before we went, go to the bank, get $100 bills. You know, the crisp ones nobody's ever breathed on before, no wrinkles on the corner. You can see that plasticky stripe through it. I'm thinking, I can't remember the last time I held a $100 bill, because who uses dollars anymore? And you bring it, and they exchange it. So if I gave them a thin $100 bill, I got a stack like this of dollars. And so it was hard to determine how much it was, other than my conversion thing on my phone. But I'll give an example, not of coffee, but of food. We went out to the first dinner that we were there. We took 2 of the people that work at Mind Leaps, we took them out to an Indian meal with us. So there were 4 of us, Joel and his wife Sandy, this other woman who I'd never met before me, and these 2 other guys. So there were 6 of us. There wasn't a speck of space on the table that you could see the table. And then Joel paid, and then we were going to split it up the next day. He comes to me the next day. He hung his head low and he goes, well, I just want to tell you how much you owe me. And I go, okay, just tell me. He goes, $14. I mean, it's all relative. I mean, I was just in Mexico and I was like, okay, how much is that worth? You know, what we pay, that's why I always leave a lot of money there when I go. Like I go to the Women's Center because I want to leave money for them. And so I'll spend a couple $100s and buy a ton of stuff. And then it's always the Jenga of how does it fit in my suitcase to bring it home. But I miraculously make that happen. I'm not, clothing can get in it, around it, whatever. And I'd rather leave the money for them. It's $1 million to them. Last but not least, at the women's co-op, they were making aprons, the women who do the sewing there. And so I saw this fabric that was hanging there. You could pick anything and they would make anything for you. And she was wearing this very cool apron that instead of tying around the neck and the bottom came around and wrapped around your stomach, but I wanted to have the crisscross in the back. And I said, can you make that into a dress for me? It took 3 stops there to make this happen because they didn't understand. And then I was like, no, not right. But I went there and bought this dress. And they put elastic and a panel around the back so that I could step in it and slide my arms through it. And it looks like an apron in the front, has a pouch, and I wore it with a short sleeve shirt underneath, and I had leggings under it. I didn't wear it there. I wore it to something here. And when I went to go pay, it cost me $27. You know, so it's all relative to, that was a lot of money for them. For me, it was $27. You just handmade a dress for me? And you know me, not really wearing dresses much, so it was kind of fun. Any more questions? Thanks for being here, you guys. Shabbat shalom, and I'll see you soon, I hope. Thanks, Matt.